When is handball not handball? When it's the 97th minute at Charlton, that's when. Flaming hell, we was robbed. Fourth official takes over as referee. The fourth official, he's fourth. When Ben Johnson got done for taking drugs in the final of the 100 metres in Seoul, did they promote the fourth person to the gold medal? No, he's the fourth official. He's not the second or the third. He was the fourth. What the heck was going on? Not that I'm angry about it. Anyway, Max Cleworth only moved his hand slightly because he was trying to shoo away all those pigeons that were in the penalty area. Man, imagine if we'd scored a goal that had deflected in off a pigeon. What a coup. Thank you very much. I was desperately trying to put that into the commentary and I just didn't have the heart. But now my standards are down. Hello, everyone. I'm Mark Griffiths. That guy there is Bill Long, and you've got some interesting looking merch on there.
Yeah, well, I'm not fortunate enough to have one of the original Wrexham Lager shirts, so I've got the only thing that I've got that kind of counts, and it's definitely coming off now because it's not comfortable underneath headphones or in this particularly warm October evening.
Yeah, fair point. Well, we're going to bring you some chat about interesting stuff around the club, minority shareholders, well, Wrexham Lager. Some football broke out as well this week. Hopefully we'll be joined by Neil Williams soon, but he's currently attending to a farm-based emergency. So let's crack on with it. This is the Final Whistle Weekly. Well, yeah, okay. Let's get to the thing that made me angry. Bill, we were robbed at Charlton, weren't we?
I'm going to go slightly against the grain and sort of say that I think between the potentially two handballs and that sequence of play, kind of, I wouldn't want to say robbed, but more like borrowed and never given back. So it's like like one of those like a slightly fair Robbins of some sort.
What? Have you been a football fan before, Bill?
I have.
I mean, apart from the fact that we were robbed, I mean, come on, let's just stick up for Wrexham anyway. That's what football fans do.
So we were robbed on Saturday. No, I don't know. It was such a surreal moment for me because I was having a look, because obviously our game finished 10 minutes later. I was having a quick look through, in the break of play, I was having a quick look through the scores around the country. It's like, 96th minute equalizer. 96th minute winner. 92nd minute winner. God, it's unusual. So many games 90 plus as some sort of like game changing goal. And then you're like, when you have that dread when you've said something and you go, oh no, it's gonna happen, isn't it? Revan does it. He picks up a yellow, but he does his job in breaking up play, and then that happens, doesn't it? And I think with the penalty, I'm assuming he's giving it for Max's touch.
Yeah.
Which, depending on what angle of the replay you look at, either looks very deliberate or completely innocuous. So I don't think VAR would have made it. Wouldn't have said it was a clear and obvious error, I guess. Not that we want VAR anyway, but that's by the by. And I don't know. I guess it just depends on the referee's angle, really, doesn't it, Mark? Because he does. There is a couple where it kind of looks like he moves his arm towards it, and granted, it's really innocuous. But when you're watching something live, maybe it looks worse than it is. I don't know. I'm trying to be sort of diplomatic there.
It is diplomatic, that wasn't it? You're wrong. It's not about. I mean, the fourth official. I mean, like I said, it depends on the referee's view, you're saying. But I mean, like I say, this fourth official, what view he has exactly, restricted view possibly. Fourth official out of 4. I'm sorry, but for me, Cleworth's arms are by his side. I mean, where did all this go about, silhouette of your body and unnatural positions? I mean, where is he supposed to put his hand? They're tucked in. Well, I see what you mean about the different camera angles, but having said that, I feel like the one that looks more damning, it only looks like his arm's away from his body because the ball's hit it and knocked his arm backwards. I I think it's an absolute shocker for the ref personally. The more I see it, the more I think it, and it's very unfortunate.
I, I've tried not to watch it too many times because I was so infuriated with the fact that it was 2-2, regardless of whether it was a penalty or not. You know that kind of almost doesn't matter when you lose the points anyway, does it, Mark? You can sit there talking about it till the cows come home, but ultimately we've lost. We sort of dropped 2 points in a game that before kickoff we would have been quite happy with a draw, wouldn't we? So it's a bit of a kicker in a
Yeah,
way.
true. Although I think we were good value for the win. Myself, I thought that we were looking more threatening than they were when they brought that Leeburn on a half time. He was big and was winning headers, but after a while his threat faded, and I thought that we were looking much more dangerous on the break. And I didn't, if I'm honest, until that free kick, I didn't really feel we were having any difficulty holding them at arm's length, to be honest.
No, particularly when their first goal as well was a bit of that's not happening again anytime soon, is it? It looks
Yeah.
like he's heading it to knock it to the back post, and it's just sort of drifted in. One of those sort of fluky. Deserves a goal because he put it in the right area, but he's put it in too good of an area for what he was probably actually trying to do.
Yeah. I was just disappointed in a way that, we've done so well defensively this season. And apart from, this is such a stupid thing to say, I know, but apart from those two goals we let in, we defended very well on on Saturday.
Mm.
But the two goals were disappointing. They get first contact on long balls into the box that we've had a long time to get underneath. And that's the issue, and it's disappointing. The centre backs all played well. Scar is a fantastic person to have in the box and attack
Mm.
things. And it was just disappointing that two balls coming into our box from the halfway line led to two goals like that. But hey, these things happen. And yeah, I was happy with the performance. It was I found the sort of slightly, I don't know, I don't want to say vitriolic, but the sort of triumphant reaction of Charlton with their celebration of getting a point, and then a lot of their fans seem to be quite active, putting stuff out. There's a video I saw on YouTube which was called something like, we smashed Hollywood FC, and it's like, did you really? I mean,
Well, look, the all you need to know about their attitude to the game as a fan base and a club is that for a split second, I thought you'd ventured into their club shop with that half and half scarf in the
oh,
background, Mark.
yes.
I know that says Wrexham in America, but for a
Yeah.
split second, I was like, oh, he did go and get one of the Charlton there.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? But I mean, it just shows, doesn't it, when people get wound up when we sing this, you're only here for the Wrexham. That when Birmingham played at Charlton 3 weeks ago, they also packed out the away end, but there were 8,000 fewer in the attendance. So
Mm,
whereas a huge club like Birmingham doesn't register with Charlton, you get 8,000 more people when we come into town in London, the
yeah,
sophisticated place where they're not impressed with their out of towners. I mean, that says something,
it's
doesn't it? I think.
it really does, and I think last year we were met with a lot of jealousy. This year, oh, it's gonna sound so arrogant, and I'm half waiting for all the comments from opposition fans, but
Do it, Bill.
we're feared now. Last year, I think most League Two clubs, like no disrespect at all to the Accrington Stanley owner, but most clubs like Accrington Stanley, they were looking over their shoulders. I think would be looking at us even if we hadn't had the takeover. They come up and go, oh, that's another big club that are back that could take our
Yeah.
League Two spot. It doubles down when you've got the money backing that we've got.
Mm.
So I think there was a grudging acceptance from a lot of those clubs that we were going up. If not last year, then it would have been this year. So they
Yeah.
kind of just sort of blew us off. You've now got very, very big clubs that are looking at us and going,
Yeah.
they're a team that are going to come here and cause problems, and it's
Yeah.
it's kind of mind blowing, isn't it, Mark? It's not something I expected. Uh, 2019 backwards.
Yeah.
Even being in this position is just crazy.
And I think, as we said before, I suspect even the owners, I don't think quite expected we'd be in this position this quickly. They
Mm.
anticipated us getting this point and getting beyond this point pretty soon after they took over. But this is really this is really accelerated progress, I would argue as well. It's fantastic. It's why, ironically, the delays of the COP are probably a good thing because now we can reassess. Oh, we need a bigger stadium now, not just a bigger COP. So ironically, those delays possibly have played into our hands, and we'll get a better rebuild as a result of it.
How do you feel about that? Like, what do you? I mean, I trust in whatever the owners are going to go for, and I think they'll do it smartly, and that they'll build the stands progressively rather than going, here's three
Mm.
brand new stands at X size, and that's how it's going to be. You
Yeah.
know, it seems like from what's been coming out of the club, it's going to be a progression with opportunities for the new builds to be able to be expanded on, so they can be built, so they're able to be made
Mm.
bigger. But what would be like your gut sort of capacity that you think would be perfect for the club and the town?
I find that incredibly difficult to answer in a way because how many, how much of our support, our home support now, because obviously there's a lot of away supporters thinking Ryan Reynolds will be there. How much of our home support is down to that same sort of factor and that same excitement about the owners? Because we've obviously got to bear that in mind because if that is a big factor, when it comes to the point where they're not our owners, if we're not an established team in the Premier League, we might reduce back down again to a point where the current capacity is plenty. I really
Yeah,
hope that doesn't happen, and that's not their intention, and everything they've done has come off exactly as they say it will. So, like you, I trust their judgment as well. Um, uh, so, okay, what would we need right now? I'd have thought, looking at the fact we consistently sell 12 out, somewhere between 15 and 20 right now would be probably what we require
mm.
to be sort of filling it up. I'd go a little bigger than that, actually, and right now, if I could, in the sense that we're now in the realm of clubs with big away supports. So, in the old days, we'd give away teams a whole stand, and I appreciate maybe that doesn't help in terms of making an intimidating atmosphere. It does help bring money in, though. So that'd be
Yeah.
something to consider, at least. Um, but in terms, gosh, yeah, I mean, if they really bring everything to fruition, I guess something bigger than that could work. The thing is that when you've got this now holistic view of the ground development, it opens up possibilities like I've heard people talking about shifting the pitch away from the Stoke Cold Brew coffee ends, and you can do that end next. And that question of where do we get the space around the ground is solved without us having to buy land.
Mm.
You've got a bigger footprint to build there. So that sort of intrigues me a little bit, not least because I remember that under the initial architects, there was talk about they were going to lengthen the spaces behind both goals to make the stadium fit for rugby internationals. Now, Bill, it's on the
Mm.
record, isn't it? My opinion on rugby. But I would all,
Mm.
to me, that doesn't do anything for me. It would only ever be the occasional one-off event. I don't want that
Well,
particularly. I would rather have us using that space, like I said, to make a bigger stand at the other end as well, if that makes
well,
sense.
I got a really limited knowledge on rugby, but I can't imagine it would be much more than one or two autumn internationals
Yeah.
against teams like Georgia or the US or Romania. It's not maybe Italy at a push, but you're not going to get a Wales England, are you? It's just not.
Yeah.
This is never going to happen in a million years.
I mean, thinking union, I say I happily I accept. I don't know nothing
No,
anything about
same
rugby.
here as well.
Yeah, but they're not going to get five or six nations games in Wrexham. No way.
No,
No way
absolutely
that's
not.
going
No.
to happen in Cardiff. So, like you say, it would be minor matches, or if it was rugby league, well, I don't know. Does the Welsh rugby league team pull the same way the union team does? Not that I have noticed.
No. I'd
Um,
imagine nowhere near because they had the Rugby League World Cup in Wrexham, didn't they? Or
yeah,
part of it in Wrexham,
yeah,
2015, something like that. And
yeah.
I can't remember it
Yeah.
selling out.
So I can't see this being of
Maybe
any
could be wrong.
benefit to us really.
No, yeah,
Whereas I can see having a bigger capacity being of benefit to us. But
yeah.
so yeah, but you're right. It's we live in exciting times.
Mm.
I'm happy about that. Let's take a break and we'll come back and we'll chat about well, investment in the club. They're not creepy and not kooky. They're not mysterious or spooky. Not even the slightest bit ooky. The Allyn family. Thank you for making me think about that, Bill. Literally seconds ago. So yes, you investors. This is a good thing, yeah.
Um, I cannot see any reason why not.
Yeah.
I think I've just been very, very quickly, just to pull behind the curtain on my phone super quick, having a look at Salt City in Syracuse, which is an area that they've developed for the community. Actually, there's a Welsh flag in the background in one of the videos. That's pretty cool. Think like the Chester market, but bigger. And a lot of people who on Twitter who are sort of local to the area that have become Wrexham fans are saying that we couldn't ask for a better family of rich people to get involved. So, if they're getting endorsements from people who live in the area, then
Yeah.
fantastic. And if maybe they can use their Salt City blueprint on T Poub and give it a bit of an upgrade.
Well, it's just they sound like ideal people to come along in that, like I said, they're community facing, but also uh, they have a bit of money behind them, and we've seen that we're getting now to the point where, well, we got. I think I was reading in the Athletic that with them on board, that the amount of money uh, owned by our backers makes us fifth or sixth biggest in League One. So
Wow.
this can only be a good thing, can't it? Really, in all
Yeah,
honesty.
absolutely.
Plus, like you said
It,
before, in Rob and Ryan we trust. If they think these are the sort of people that we want to do business with, that sounds pretty good.
yeah, I mean, it all comes back to me for even if you take an incredibly cynical approach to Rob and Ryan, they're two very public facing people that don't want a disaster on their on their record, do they?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they're not stupid people. They're not going to be getting in people who are here to intentionally screw us over. So happy days.
yeah.
It's all so surreal, Mark, isn't it? Like we're playing Charlton at the weekend, feeling robbed. Well, you're feeling robbed. I was a bit more
Oh,
diplomatic.
a little bit more of a softie. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the less diplomatic way of putting it.
fatherhood's changed me, Mark. What can I say?
Oh, it's beautiful.
um, it hasn't. I'm just not sleeping enough to even care about anything that isn't sleep. uh, I lost track of what I was saying now.
You were
But yeah,
saying
it's,
how you owed me quite a lot of money.
yeah,
Be surprised how often
okay.
it
I'll just go
works
to the
with
cash
you.
machine. Yeah. Yeah. To coming from playing Charlton, getting 5 points from Rotherham away, Huddersfield at home, Charlton away, and then this to happen, it's just all. It's hard to. So for listeners, we're recording this hours after the news has come out, so I don't really feel like I've had time to properly digest what this really means for us, Mark.
Hmm. I mean, I feel, the sort of talking about the community sort of prioritization with the Allen family has led a lot of people to think, well, they'll jump in and do things in the town, and apparently they have been speaking to people already, quite secretly in the town. But whether it actually anything comes concrete from that, or whether it's just they're contributing ideas about how the club can face the community. The fact of the matter is, these are people that they are valued at 2 billion. These are the level of investors it's nice to have. You can the sort of people you can turn around to and say, right, we've got a situation here, or we've got a big infrastructure build here. So maybe we should jump in and ask them, you got a spare million here or there. In fact, weirdly, just to say that somebody's entered our waiting room. Could it
Oh, here we
be one of the Allen family about to offer us the deal of a lifetime? Let's have a look, everyone. I've pressed admit.
It's Galaxy S6.
Yeah, that's right. That's my role-playing game when I'm doing the old science fiction Twitch account. It's exciting, this. Who might it be? Oh, I bet it's one of the Glazers, isn't it?
Oh God.
Think when I'm cleaning windows.
Hey.
Well, whoever Galaxy S6 is, they've got hold of our link,
It's
but they're
me,
not.
Mark.
It's Neil! Yay! That was brilliant.
What a
Neil!
palaver.
Neil is here.
I had to reload everything. I just couldn't get in. Have you launched a new Zoom?
No, we are live though. Just to warn
Oh,
you.
sorry. My apologies.
No, it's all right. We let you in. It's just in case you start saying some terrible things about good people, as you
So
do.
sorry.
So Neil has joined us. We've just been talking to the about the new investments we've got today. As a businessman, if somebody worth 2 billion invested in Whitchurch photography, would you see this as a positive thing?
I'd retire.
Don't say that because Rob and Ryan will be gone then.
Very much a positive thing, yeah. Because they're also talking about helping the community as well, not just the club. So, which I think I've read it very briefly that they help out the communities as well as the sporting venues, whatever their interests are. So it'll be a good thing for the whole area rather than just the club.
Absolutely. So if you're able to enable your video, Neil, that would be awesome. If not, oh look at that, there he is. With the Welsh flag
Hey.
behind him as always. Excellent. Yeah, so it's an exciting time with all this money flashing around. What can we say?
Yeah, it's good to hear all these people are interested in Wrexham Football Club for a start. As long as the wrong people don't get involved, would be my concern.
But I think to be fair, Rob and Ryan have got their heads screwed on, spotting the sort of people you don't want to work with. We're no longer, fortunately, stuck with the sort of characters who want to knock the racecourse down and build a supermarket. Rob and Ryan circulate in rather more refined circles, don't they? Thankfully.
Oh, certainly, yeah. Or a B&Q. It could have been a B&Q or anything, couldn't it? So, I think our future is secure for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, fantastic, isn't it? Well, speaking of exciting times, he says, making the most smooth segue anyone has ever made in the history of the human race. After this, we'll have a little chat about the heroics against Porto, because we'll be hearing from Stuart Parker. Right, so our guest today is Stuart Parker, and he was, well, Wrexham's keeper after those great late 70s days. He took over from Eddie Nedvecki, who was a real iconic keeper for us. And memorably, he was in goal when Wrexham knocked Porto out of Europe, which, as you'll hear, I argue, and he agrees, was a bigger achievement than Wrexham beating Arsenal. I mean, Bill, you were talking about how mind-blowing it is, the situation we're in now. But fair play, little old Wrexham, who were a bad fourth division team at the time, let's not kid ourselves, beating Porto, knocking them out of Europe over two legs, maybe shows that we've been doing mind-blowing stuff all along.
Yeah, and I think stuff like that is almost more, well, it's definitely more impressive than what's going on now because we'd have been really unfancied. I think if a Wrexham side were in Europe, that would be an interesting thing to happen now, wouldn't it? But if a current Wrexham side were in Europe, we'd you only have to see what TNS are doing to see that these kind of results can go your way. I know the gulf's probably bigger now, but Porto are they mathematically the best team in Portugal in terms of how many trophies they've won? If they're not first, they're second or third, aren't they? So, that's an absolutely giant of a club, isn't it?
Well, they got to the European Cup final the season before. They won it 3 years later.
Right, yeah.
They provided a big chunk of the Portugal side that the previous summer got to the semi-finals of the European Championships. Packed full of sort of Portuguese legendary internationals, and we do them over two legs. I mean, Neil, it was a ludicrous achievement, wasn't it?
A crazy achievement. I mean, the result at home was a very good result at home. As you said, Mark, we were in the fourth division at that time. And to go away to one of the top teams in Europe and actually get a result out there after going, we'll be 2-0 down out there as well.
3-0 down. We won the first leg 1-0. We were 3-0 down after half an hour there and fight back.
And to come back from 3-0 down to grab a late winner in the conditions of the weather that was there at the time as well is just mind blowing. It far outweighs our win over Arsenal. A massive achievement. I mean, they are talking now of maybe entering some of our clubs back in this Welsh Cup system, and I don't know whether it's a good idea or not at the moment, and whether the English, FA will say, right, if you want to be in the Welsh Cups, you can play in the Welsh League. So, but I know Cardiff and Swansea are interested in joining the Welsh Cup for that reason, I believe.
Well, Swansea already are in it, and were in it last season. The English FA, as I understand it, won't kick us out, but obviously we won't be able to qualify for Europe through English competitions. So were we to win the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup, we wouldn't be able to qualify through. But at the moment, that's not really a concern. It could become a concern, couldn't it? Let's be honest. Just as a sort of side comment, though, I must say it's interesting when going rounds with a women's team how many Welsh League clubs say, well, we won't vote for that, which was my immediate reaction when I saw it being mooted. But the fact is, they have voted for it. That's a weird one. But anyway, and never mind that. Let's move on with our guest, shall we? Here is Stuart Parker, the man who kept out Porto. Firstly, Stuart, thank you for being willing to have a chat. That's brilliant. Let's go back to the start. I understand, and I can't help thinking, when you look at how sort of granular it all is with academies and stuff now, is it right that you wrote a letter to Allyn Griffiths to get a trial? Is that correct?
It was my dad, actually, who did it. Yeah, I mean, Dad always wanted me to be a professional footballer. It was like his dream, because basically he sort of was a footballer himself and he had bad knees, so he struggled with that. And then when he brought me up, it was just sort of in the back garden as much as we could. He took me to all games to watch games and that. So it was one of them where he was like, sort of, you will be a footballer. And when I was in school, I was sort of going to Chester at the time, because obviously Winsford and Chester's not too far away. Alan Oakes was manager of Chester. And he knew my dad anyway, so my dad sort of said to him, take him in a little bit. So he took me school holidays and different things, enjoying it. But it was getting to a time when I was sort of getting towards leaving school around Easter time and that. And Dad was like, you're not at a club yet, you're not signed up anywhere, you're playing for Cheshire Boys and that, you should be somewhere. And I mean, it's different now, isn't it? Academies, when you're 8, 9 years of age, you're sort of doing academies. So he sort of said to me, he said, I've written a letter, for you to go to trials. We got a trial, there's a big trial on Sunday. So he said, we're going. And a friend of mine, Mark Owen, who used to read the news for Granada reports, he was in school with me, and he came across with me as well. So it was at Plascoch, if you remember years ago, there was a massive fields there and everything. So we just come for trials, and it was basically just games, and I think there was coaches going round and having a look. And at the end of the day, they sort of come along and said, can you come back for 3 days, tomorrow onwards for 3 days. So my dad was like, yeah, he can come, I'll bring him. And it's like, yeah, so he brought me. And at the end of 3 days, they sort of said, we can sign, I think it was Wyn Jones at the time, who was sort of the head scout we're going back that long. Came to the house in Winsford, signed forms and that, and I think it was around Easter time. So my dad was like, all right, you've got what you want, you're going to be an apprentice or a ground staff as it was then. You go to Wrexham. But it was like I was still in school. I'm like sort of just turned 16, and then it was like you're playing in school games, you're playing in Cheshire games, and you're playing against kids of your old age. And then it was like towards the end of the season, you're playing in Welsh National League games, and you're playing against grown men, aren't you? At 16 years of age, then it was a different game. It was, you were up against strong people, and you were elbowing and different things. It was allowed, and and it was a real, you either dealt with it, or you sort of would go the other way when you think, well, this isn't for me. So lucky enough, it was it was okay. But I managed to play on the racecourse a couple of times, even before I'd sort of come as a ground staff and that as well. So it was brilliant for me. I loved it. And my dad was really happy as well. So I'm like, yeah, I've done all that. But then he sort of said to Alamos, he said, well, we don't. Oh, we were thinking of signing, but we hadn't made a decision. And Dad was like, well, you're taking too long, basically. And it was like sort of meant as well. When I was 16, I come to Wrexham to live, basically. So Monday to Friday, lived in Digs, which was another experience. I'd never been away from home at the time. And you sort of meet people, don't you, as well, who. I was speaking to my partner the other night, and we were talking about moving into football at the age now, and it was sort of when I moved in at 16, we had Alan Ricketts came from Crawley, there was Dave Palmer, he was from born in Lincolnshire, there was Craig Fleming from Newmarket, there was a couple of lads from up the coast and that as ground staff at the same time. Whereas I think being at the moment, they're all quite local lads, aren't they? Whereas then, I suppose we're in the second division, and it was a big net to throw out, wasn't it? And they had a choice of who they could bring into the area, really. So I think moving now forward, now they can widen the gap again. Now, I presume.
Yeah,
but it was brilliant for me.
And of course, we had a very good reputation then, bringing young players through. Like you said, we're in the old second division, so it must have been something that will draw people in, and also to be part of it. That must have been very exciting because you're coming off the best time in the club's history in the 70s, aren't you?
It was great. I mean, I used to. You always look at results, don't you, of teams and that, and Wrexham were doing so well at the time, and you sort of would think, and then you'd go to school and say, I've signed for Wrexham, and people would be like, oh my God, you're going there, are you? And it's like, yeah, but I mean, you look at the 77 season and that, and the players and everything you look at, and then you sort of come on your first day as ground staff, and you're doing everything, you're looking around and you're seeing all the players that are there and that, and it's a big step up, isn't it? You come from school, you learn your sort of trade, you learn everything of your cleaning and you're doing all the difficult jobs, not difficult jobs, but all the jobs that give you sort of. You're learning your trade, you're cleaning the dressing rooms, you're getting the kit up, you're putting in the washing machines, and you're sort of making it the dressing rooms clean at the end of the day, cleaning the bathrooms out, putting kit out for training, and then you've got to train yourself. You've got to do your own bit then, and then when everybody goes home, you're then tidying all the stuff up again, and it learns you so much. You learn everything. You get all the. Your banter with all your mates and everything as well. So it builds all your youth team up and that as well, doesn't it? Because you're all together as well. It's really great. It's really good. And I don't know whether they still do that now. I don't know whether they're still doing it and whether they miss out on that a little bit. Your bonding and everything. It was really good for me, to be honest with you. And living away from home as well. It was, I needed to have friends, and I needed to, people that I could trust in that as well. And I felt that the group of lads that we had were really good mates, and still speak to most of them now as well, but that's football, isn't it? Once you've been a footballer and once you've played football, I mean, you can go on a pitch and kick hell out of each other for an hour and a half or whatever, and then you still shake hands with someone at the end of the game, and that, you might not always like them, but I meet people now I played 40 years ago against, and it's like, let's have a beer, let's talk about this, and that's what football brings for you, I think.
That is, and in those days, the word apprenticeship would be used more, and in the respect like you're talking about, it really is an apprenticeship, isn't it? It is. It's bringing you into a profession, and it's also sort of bringing you into a grown-up world almost, isn't it? It's got a good background for you.
Yeah, it is, and it's just. I mean, I did a bit of coaching with young people and that in academies and that as well, and they start them so young, they're 6, 7 years of age, and they'll sort of at the end of the season they'll say to a young lad who's 8 or 9. We don't want to sign you. And I've seen young kids who sort of come out of there and crying, and they're like, what am I going to do now? Yeah. Well, we didn't have that basically, because it was like 16 before I sort of signed anywhere. So really my next step then is being told as I'm going to be a pro, or I'm not going to be a pro. But it's a lot different then. I think it was a lot different, it really was. And it was, I think it's more ruthless now. It's like you're not good enough, and that's it. You're done, and there's always somebody there to sort of take your place. But yeah, it's mad.
As you're going through as a young keeper, obviously there's Adran Premier, and initially there's Di Davies. I mean, did you get to work with Di at all before?
We were Di all the time. Di. I mean, we used to train every day, obviously, and then we'd go off and do sessions. Afternoon, keepers were always used to go in. We do the training in the mornings. If they were doing 4 or 5 mile runs in the mornings, we were doing them. Or we were doing sprints and that. We were doing that, and then we would come back in the afternoon. But Di and Eddie were really, really tough. They really worked really, really hard, and the standard was really, really high. I mean, Di was obviously playing for Wales at the time, but he was an amazing bloke. Honestly, he's such an example of somebody to sort of look up to, and that he wanted everything done right. And he was immaculate the way he was as well. He was very fit. Eddie was the same, and they worked really hard. They worked well together. I learned so much from them too as well. And obviously, when Di moved on, Eddie stepped up, and then I went in the reserves basically as well. And it was just you just learn so much. It's just like you get thrown in, and you have to do it, don't you? If you want to get on, you have to do it. Where I watch games and that now, and it's like some of the games are like sort of chess games, aren't they? Where you pass from here and you pass from there. But when we used to play, it was just like it was football, and it was like you played and you played. Your tackles would fly in, and you would do stuff. Whereas nowadays you can't really do it, can you? I don't know whether it's probably rightly or wrongly. It's scrutinised a lot more now. But no, I learned so much from them too. I mean, I thanked them so much for what they did, and Di was amazing, and that, and he would tell you if you were no good, but he would really tell you if you had done really, really well as well. He was good and bad with Di, but you knew where you stood with him. And Eddie was the same as well. We're going to, we're back in this afternoon. We're doing this, and you work, don't you? You work, and that's what it is. It was an enjoyable life. It was a great time for me, really, because you're learning off 2 guys who both played international football in the end, and Eddie went off to Chelsea as well, didn't he? So they great careers, both of them. Lucky enough.
And you're saying about like the difference between that model and what they do now, and the big Premier League teams now are all of a sudden saying they want their academy teams to be playing in the Football League, or that initiative fails because they're recognising, like you said, that the under 21 games between really technical players, that's great, but they don't get that experience of playing against somebody who's playing for their livelihood, to put food on the table. And also, you're going to come up against in reserves good players coming back from injuries, say, or it's a different beast, isn't it?
Yeah, I found. I come to Wrexham, as I said, at 79, and it was like we're playing in the Welsh National League, and you would get first team pros or everything, or younger pros who were just coming back from injury, and they're you're learning. They're telling you what they're telling you what to do, or they're taking positions where you think, well, right, when you do that. I mean, I was at 60. I was at 16, and Lancashire League. First game I played in the Lancashire League, we played up at Carlisle. Peter Beardsley was playing up front for Carlisle, and you think, and they beat us 5-2. I'm 16 years of age, and we were quite a young team, and it was just like you're learning from playing against people like that. Yeah. And then you look at the careers that they've had and that, and you think, oh God, it's just, and we would play against, Liverpool A or Liverpool, international breaks or something like that, or like pre-season we'd play against Liverpool reserves or something, and they'd play decent players, it's your step up, isn't it? And it's great experience, As I say again, it's like you either learn or you just like, oh God, here we go. But
was Beardsley any good?
He was tremendous, wasn't he? He really, really was. Wasn't he? He was a great player, really, even at that age.
Yeah, wow, that's superb. Wow.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like I said, Di leaves. You're reserved to Eddie. Your first game was Oswestry, was it, in the Cup?
It was Oswestry in the Welsh Cup, yeah. We just got thrown in, but it was just like, I mean, in the Welsh Cup, it was we obviously you got your Oswestry's there, and you had that, and it was just like it was a good game for me to go into. Really, it was at the race course as well, so it was it was a game that we were expected to win, so it was a good choice for me to go in as well. Yeah, so that was my first game basically. Yeah, enjoyed it. Yeah, it was good.
Clean sheet. 3 or 4-0, I believe.
4-0, I believe. Yeah,
like that.
Could have been 4-0. Yeah.
Tidy.
Yeah, it's all downhill from there, isn't it? At the end of the day, yeah.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, I think your first actual league game is that final game of the season where we have to go to Reading, and is it win to stay up, I think, or draw?
Yeah, the win or draw to stay up, I believe. I got the facts at the moment, but I think Eddie got sent off in either the Saturday before, didn't it? And then it was down to me, and it was like, all right, okay. And I mean, to be fair, Eddie, all that week, it was like, intense training and that as well. And he was there and he was supportive and that as well. But it was Kerry Dixon playing for them up front, Trevor Senior playing for them, Laurie Sanchez was playing in the middle of midfield. So they were, they were no mugs, even though, the league that they played in. I mean, they Laurie Sanchez and Kerry, Dixon were internationals after that, weren't they? And that, and it was just, and we were unfortunate. We lost 1-0, but I don't think we disgraced. But it wasn't just that game, was it? It's the other, 45 games that, let you down, isn't it, really? But, and it's just like, it's the first time when you're in the dressing room at the end of a game, and for me, it was a different experience because obviously I'd never sort of played in the first team before, never been around the first team before, basically on a match day like that, apart from going in at the end of the games and taking all the kit away and everything like that. And to see grown men crying that because it's their livelihood as well, isn't it? It's sort of, then you sort of think, this is real, isn't it? And because they're looking, they're older pros or whatever, and they get released by Wrexham. Where do you go from there? And that, after that, and that, some obviously, they get better deals, don't they? But it's a real eye opener in that as well, because you don't realise how passionate they are until you sort of get in a situation where you've lost the game, and they're all in, a lot of them are in floods of tears, and sort of, you don't know where you're going, and the club as well, you're dropping down a league, and everything then, all comes together then, doesn't it? You're looking, your money's not going to be as much, and players not going to probably want to come and play because you're playing in a lower league and that. So it was a difficult game and difficult day and difficult, journey home, really. It was very deflated and that, and it was just, and I'm elated because I've made my debut. So it was strange for me because made my debut, should be one of the best days of my life, and then at the end of the game you're sort of thinking, well, what a bad thing, really.
Yeah, exactly. The and as well, I mean, off the pitch, this is the point where the club's starting to get into financial trouble. Not like the recent ones, but purely, I think, because they overspent a bit when we were going well, and now we're paying a price for it. And it's the point where Bobby Roberts will be coming in and getting a very youthful sort of shoestring squad together. As players, do you think that sort of adds to their players' sense of, I could lose my job here, we got relegated, this club's having problems, they might not be able to afford to give me a contract, or are players sort of oblivious to that sort of thing and crack on with the job? I don't know.
I was quite oblivious to it all, to be honest, because I was never really sort of motivated by the money that much. I just wanted to play and and not be injured and sort of play, really. He's quite shrewd, Bobby Roberts, because I think he would have come in and he would have realised that the budget would have been really low and that as well, and I think a lot of people wouldn't have taken the job if they'd realised what the budget was going to be like. But I mean, he brought young lads in. There was young lads as well that from the youth team that were just New Year pros and sort of were coming into the first team. There was trialists and different things that were playing. There was lads that he had from Colchester when he was there. There was Steve Wright and that. They came and Phil Coleman, and they came up, and there was like a lad on 12 from Tony Evans. They sort of came. So it was people that he knew, wasn't it, as well? So obviously with the experience that he had, he still brought people that he knew. And then you've still got to trust the young lads as well, haven't you? Which is difficult, isn't it? I probably didn't get as much credit as what he actually, deserved, really, because, you're starting off on a blank canvas. You've got to sort of get everything going before knit the team back together, and then sort of, be ready for the league.
I think it's that season where I remember the first match of the season on the programme was the team photo. There's only 14 players in our team photo because we just haven't got enough.
We just didn't know. I mean, you look, and it's finances, isn't it? And players sometimes are not really, don't want to commit themselves that much either, do they? As well, But it was, it was difficult times, but enjoyable times as well. And it was like, let's all do this together, really. Let's all stick together and let's see where it goes, really. And it was the same. It was still, you know, some decent teams around and that, you know, and you played against some decent players. I think that season, I think we played against Sheffield United in the FA Cup and that.
Yeah, oh yeah,
You know, I think we got beaten. And it was like Keith Edwards and all them. And they, when you look at them, they're like sort of legends at the club and, you know, real goal scorers and different things. And we're all young lads and that as well, learning our trade. And we're still playing against people like that. I mean, you know, you look at, you know, if you were a young lad now playing in the same league as Wrexham, you're up against Mullin and different things like that, you know, and Elliot Lee and that, you know, experienced players, you know, that you got to pit yourselves up against every week. But, you know, they're big names, aren't they, at the end of the day? They are.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were getting games all right. You got injured, didn't you, in that season? Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether, I mean, my dad said, oh, you're always unlucky and that with your knees, because my dad had bad knees when he was playing. He had to pack up and you've inherited it from me. I'm like, oh, cheers, Dad. That's so it's one of them. That's one of the things that he always says, and it's a disaster. That's all he ever says. He's always ever said that. But yeah, I had troubles with my knees, and it was just I had operations. They didn't know what it was. It was just I would play. Sometimes I would bend it, and it would just my knee would swell up. I'd come in on a Monday, they'd drain it off, you know, so it would go back to normal size. I'd have treatment all week. I had cortisones in there, I had operations, you know, and it was different things. And I think it was a wear and tear of training every day as well, isn't it? You know, and we used to go to Aberystwyth training in the sand dunes and that as well, and it's like, you know, you don't know whether things like that jarring on your knee and different things, you don't know, you know, and, you know, but yeah, just unfortunate really. I mean, it's different. I mean, maybe technology, you know, nowadays, you know, if I was playing nowadays, you can go in and have a look, or we can repair that and we can do whatever. But, you know, you're talking 40 years ago now, aren't you, really? So it's, technology's gone on a little bit now, hasn't it? You know, really. So.
Not so much running up and down sand dunes now.
No.
Not a popular thing as a player, apart from Frank Carradus, apparently.
Oh, Frank Carradus. It's like a gazelle, the lad. But, yeah, I mean, that's changed as well, obviously, because it's like, they have all data, don't they? They have you know, all the vests and that they wear, and it, you know, measures how far they run and what they do. And I mean, end of the season, you'd either be offered a contract or you wouldn't be offered a contract, and it's like this is when we start back to training. We'll see you such and such. Try and do something in the summer. Yeah. You know, sort of. The summer break was your summer break, and that was it. You don't think about football. You don't do anything. You don't train. You don't do anything. You go off. You come back first day, you get weighed, and you're like overweight, and you're like, oh yeah, you're going to have to, you know, you're running with your bin bags on, and you're getting yourself sorted. Whereas I believe now it's like you get your programs through the summer, don't you? Where you got to do this, and I presume that they're monitoring them all that as well. Yeah. So you don't really get much chance, do you? You know now. Yeah. Whereas then it was like sort of your 6 weeks off. It was like enjoy it and go and do what you do. You know?
Well, the classic story about the monitoring during the summer. I can't for the life of me think which player it was. Sure, it was an Everton or Liverpool player who, when they started doing that, they were giving them like little, you know, wristbands to actually track where they're going. Yeah. And they said they'd put it on their dog and then they just throw the ball for him. They're like, well, you're quick. Yeah, gee, how'd you do that?
And he comes back about 6 weeks later and he's like...
Yes, it's huge. Oh, I can't think of the life of me what it was, but...
Yeah, I would imagine somebody would always find a way of doing it, wouldn't they? Just to sort of get, you know, to get past all that, yeah.
You got to, yeah. Well, maybe you haven't, but...
But pre-season was always difficult. I mean, that's what it was always for. Yeah, you know, it was your pre-season, you work hard, and then I'm thinking for about the first week or so, we never saw a ball. Yeah. You know, and it's like you listen now, they come back and they're virtually ready to play, aren't they? You know, they're virtually ready to play. They get the balls out and they do stuff. Whereas we would spend a week or 10 days without a ball and get your fitness up, and you know, we go to Aberystwyth for 5 days and run like hell. Yeah. But it was like we always used to go on a Sunday. We'd train Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning, and then we'd have a game on the Friday night. And we're AK and we're playing against Aberystwyth, and it's like, great, thanks for that, Cap. But yeah, no, nowadays I think they come back so fit, you know, and it's just like they're virtually ready to play again, I think. So, yeah.
You made me think then as well, you mentioned earlier about Bobby Roberts bringing in players like that he knew. And there was an awful lot then, wasn't there, of sort of, naturally, because we had no money, like churn in the team, you know, you had players coming in on loan for a month, then be gone, because we couldn't afford to keep them. Yeah. Or players, Jim Harvey comes into mind, like players that we wanted to keep, but we just couldn't afford it. And I was just thinking, in terms of your perspective as a goalkeeper, my memory of Phil Coleman was he was really good. I really liked him.
Yeah.
But then he's there, then he'll be gone, and you're constantly playing against different centre backs.
Yeah.
Maybe Steve Wright is a constant.
Steve Wright stayed for quite a while, Steve, didn't he?
But making those relationships with the centre backs and full backs, and must be.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, you never had a settled side at times, did you? And that was, I mean, you'd work in it through the week, but you wouldn't really know the team until probably a Friday or a Thursday. You might do a little bit as well, but yeah, there was a lot of turnaround of players, and a lot of free agents around and that, and they would come in and have a look, and then they'd be gone, and it was like, where have they gone? Oh, I don't fancy them, or we can't, as you say, we can't afford them, and that, and it's just like. Really, it's really and you do need to build relationships with your players, don't you?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And the goalkeeping situation when you were injured was a bit like that. I mean, you had possession with Bob Wardle and different people would come in for it. Greg Millington, I think.
Greg Millington came in. There was Ronnie Sinclair from Nottingham Forest. There was Chris Sander, I think he came from Swansea, and they would come in on a month's loan, and then it would be like. They'd go back because I would be fit, and then my knee would go again, and then it would be like, and it was frustrating for me, and it was a bit. I understand it being frustrating for the club and the gaffer as well, and that, to be honest with you, because you think, okay, you're back to normal, and then something happens again, and then it's like, so no, it was total frustration, really, it really was.
But then the positive coming from that, I would argue, is that clearly Roberts has got faith in you because he's bringing in these sticking plaster fixes, but he's always going back to you, and then at the start of the next season you're able to play, and well, you know what I'm going to talk about here. We do some quite interesting things that season, don't we?
Oh yeah, it was bad. We had a couple of holidays.
Well, I mean, drawing Porto for a start, wow, I mean, that's incredible. Runners up in the European Cup the year before, they'll win this 3 years later. Fabulous players, half of them play for Portugal. And I remember, I say this a lot to people, but I remember being in school at the time, and Radio Cleworth had a football expert on, whoever he was, and he said Wrexham do really well if they keep it below double figures in the first game at the racecourse. And all my mates were really ripping into me, like, you're going to get hammered. And instead, what happens is quite the opposite. It's unbelievable at the racecourse.
I mean, we would probably the thought of it, the same as your friends, really, to go. It would be just sort of, it's just surreal, isn't it, really, when you look at it now, because it's just sort of a team where we were playing against who we played against. And it was just the amount of internationals that they had, as you said. Plus, you had Mickey Walsh in there as well. You had Peter Barota in there as well. And it was just... It was surreal, because it was just sort of, you look at it, and how do you prepare for it? It's different now. I mean, you can put the telly on now, and it's just sort of, you can pick up and you can go back to games, and you can look at games and everything like that. We couldn't do that. We didn't do that. We just knew we were playing against, the gaffer would say, well, you've got such and such, you're playing against that. He does this, and this, and it's like, right, okay. Do you take it in at the time? You just play the game, don't you? I mean, and to say, it's like, these chess games now where they just, when they're going to pass, or if you go and close it down there, then they're going to play it through and everything like that. And it was just sort of the way that they probably would play. They were past being internationals, but you don't prepare for that at that time anyway. But it was just surreal, really, because it was like you would see them, they would come and they'd have all this. And rightly so, they're international, they have a bit of a strut about them, they come to the racecourse, they're pinging balls around, and you're thinking, and then I'm thinking, oh great, these balls are going to be pinging around, around me and everything like that. And I think we just set up not to concede, and I think the more you don't concede, I think the confidence comes a little bit as well, doesn't it? And I think as well, you get a couple of tackles in. I mean, you wouldn't be able to do it now, but you get a couple of tackles in. You block the and you follow through and that, and then they start to look at each other because they're not used to it, are they? They're not used to that when they play at their own at home. They don't kick around and they play and they're jumping around and that, aren't they? Whereas we go out, a couple of tackles in. they're jumping up and down and they're looking around and thinking, all right, I'll say. And then we've kept it tight. They've hit the bar and the post a couple of times. Lady Luck's been on our side a little bit. And then obviously we go and score, don't we? Which is great.
Yeah.
And I mean, you just look around at each other and you sort of think, all right, this is good, isn't it? What's all the fuss about, But it's just, and it's just one of them nights again, when you go back to, you make your league debut, you think about it and you think, that's been a great achievement. And you look at that and you think, clean sheet against them, that's no, not just down to, that as a collective, team, some achievement really, to be honest with you. And in a one-off game, it can happen.
Yeah.
But not in two legs, I know, and it happened bizarrely, on away goals, but over two legs, I don't really think that it would probably happen again nowadays. I'd be really surprised, and I'll be honest with you.
Well, I want to look back a little bit at the first game, but before I do, I just want to say that's why, for me, a lot of people would disagree, but I think that knocking out Porto is a bigger result than beating Arsenal in 1992, because that was an amazing achievement, don't get me wrong, but to beat Porto over two legs, and that's astounding, really. And let's be honest, we weren't doing well in the league. In between those games, we're getting battered by teams like Peterborough, and yet we raise ourselves for those matches.
I agree with you with that. As I say, over one game. There's you look at over the years, when there's been shocks and different teams, like non-league teams have beaten league teams and that as well. It happens, doesn't it? But when you play over two games against maybe the calibre of players as well that you've played it, over two games, then I would go with that, if I'm honest with you, really. And I agree with you with that,
And I've always thought, it is part of it, what you've already put your finger on, that I think the difference between the style of British teams and European teams was much greater, the difference between them. So in Britain, you've got much more the physical, more direct approach, referees letting things go. In Europe, you've got a lot more sort of, just keep it on the floor, we don't knock it in the air at all. Referees will tend to give a free kick if I fall over, which, I know some people feel that still happens, but nowhere near like it used to, I think, where it would just be always given. And I used to sometimes feel that could play an advantage of sort of like lower division Britain teams, because Newport do well in Europe as well, don't they? A few teams do. Because we are more physical.
Yeah.
And because, frankly, an awful lot of really high quality centre-backs are not 6'2", 6'3" beasts, and then they come up against Jim Steele. Yeah. And it's like, well, hang on a second. If the ref is giving us a bit of leeway as well, they've got a real major problem on their hands, haven't they? Steele must be a nightmare to mark if he used to players running at you.
Jim was there. Jim was always there. You would hit Jim, and Jim would hold the ball up, and players would, but he was physical as well, and he would get the ball, he would lay it off, and his thing was he would get it, lay it off, he would turn and he'd be gone, and as I say, the goal was exactly
what it was,
what it was. But no, I think I agree. I think that with a bit of steel, you play with a bit of steel and a bit of bite. I think it makes a hell of a difference, and sometimes it can make that difference between the class and the teams come closer together. I think with the grit and that they can show and that.
To me, it feels like in the early '80s, Liverpool, Forest, Villa, all these teams doing so well in Europe, and it's because they had the advantage of they do all that physical stuff. But they've also got very, very good players at the top end, so they dominate Europe. But then British teams like ourselves could still do it, because if we could impose our style of play on them, they've got a problem. The other thing that sticks in my head was Peter Barotto, who should have been used to. He's played for a while for Chelsea, done well for Chelsea. I remember him playing at ours a few times and looking good. But he seemed all over the shop in that game. He was coming after stuff he had no right to come for. Ballyhorn, it's the bar because of
and
that.
I don't think they don't chuck balls in the box as much, do they? And I think you get used to it not being chucked in the box as much. Crosses coming in and then corners under the bar and that. And I think you sort of you get out of that sink where I think that. Like with Portugal and the way that they play, it's very much into feet and turn and shoot and different things. You don't get many edit goals there really. Whereas we would put stuff in the box and it would be challenges and it would be just sort of one of them. And I think as you say, if you put yourself about and if referees are a little bit lenient and let them go a little bit, they start to worry a bit, don't they?
Yeah,
I think
my recollection of it is that.
Yeah.
It's weird. I wish I'd never looked back at the goal because Jim Steele's like my favourite all-time Wrexham player.
Oh, is he? Yeah.
I always loved him. And my vision in my head before looking back at the goal is like you're describing, a sort of big heroic physical goal. He brings it down beautifully, volleys it out to John Muldoon.
Yeah.
He's turned down, Steele's charging down the middle. Up to that point, that is what happens.
Yeah.
But when you look at the cross, in my head, it was like a classic Jim Steele towering header. It isn't really, because Barotta's positioning is so bad. He's basically saying, hey, if you want to come in the near post, you've got to go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, if he'd been where he should have been, he catches that cross before Jim Steele can get near.
Yeah,
but
But that's that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad he did that.
And maybe it's fear of Steele.
Yeah, possibly.
That makes him back off a bit. He's thinking, this is going to hurt if I put myself there.
Yeah.
Maybe, hopefully he'll overhit it or something.
Yeah.
And then the mad thing is, like I said, between those two games, I think we lose 3 games sort of fairly heavily, or we lose 2 and draw. We're in bad form at home.
I think we lost on the Saturday before we played in Porto. I think we lost at home to Stockport. 4-3, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then obviously we went over to Porto. The weather was pretty much like today. I mean, we got to Porto, and I don't think it stopped raining all the time we were there.
Well, the umbrellas in the crowd. Huh?
Oh yeah, and it was just so cold, and it was just like, you're Portugal, and it's like I'm going my holidays to Portugal, and it's like it's raining.
Yeah.
I expect sun, but no, I think it rained, and I remember us vaguely training one day before the game, and there was a pitch not far from our hotel, and it was like a gravel pitch, but it was basically underwater. It was that bad, there was that much water there, and that, and we were staying right on the sea. And we went down to the beach, and the waves were absolutely unbelievable. The weather was that bad. But yeah, it was just, I don't know. It was just. We did lose. We lost against Stockport. We lost 4-3 on the Saturday, and we went there. And then obviously it rained all the time we were there. But and we trained on the pitch the night before, and we all looked at it, and the grass was quite long, really quite long, and we thought, no, it's not this. The night that we played, it was just it's like a bowling green, absolutely unbelievable. Never cut up or anything like that. And it had rained, and it had rained. But again, it was quite surreal, because it was just getting to the ground and that as well. It was just, your friends would have probably said we were having double figures again, really. And it was, an apprehension, and you sort of look at it, because you're expecting a backlash, aren't you? You beat them 1-0. I mean, you don't really know what has been said in the papers over there, do you? But you would imagine it's not probably been complimentary for them,
to humiliated us, didn't we? Yeah.
Not complimentary for them and that as well. And then you remember waiting in the tunnel before the game, and the tunnel was, where the dressing rooms were, it was quite a long walk underground. And then you came up behind the goal and that as well, and then you came up. Whereas the night before, the stadium had been empty when you're training in there. And then you come up and it's like, still raining. And then it's absolutely full, basically. And then you start to think again, then don't you? Oh, God, here we go. But yeah, it was a great experience.
And then, again, coming back to why, for us, it's a bigger deal than the Arsenal win. They've got the chance to have that backlash, and you do get that backlash, because they scored 3 in the first half hour, and I was listening to it on the radio, and you sort of get the sense that, okay, well, we had our fun in the first leg, and now they're going to smash us. Yeah. And yet, incredibly, we come back and it's 3-2 at half time with Jake King's mad 5 minutes. I mean,
but it was corners coming in again, wasn't it? It was corners coming in. But yeah, I mean, it was. You expect them to start off early, don't you? Full blast, and they did, and then it was like 3-0 down after 30 minutes, and you're sort of thinking, oh God, here we go. It's going to be one of them. And I think again, you look at it, and it's spirit, isn't it? It's team spirit again. You're looking around the team, and it's like, come on, dig in. Yeah. And professional pride, you don't want to get beat 8-9, do you? You still want to do your best. You're losing 3-0, but and then when the 2 goals go in, I mean, it's a different story. You're going at 3-0 down, or you're going at 3-2 down at half time. So the team talk's totally different, isn't it? Because it's like, come on, lads, this is it. Or we still got a chance here. Just keep doing what you're doing. Get a chance, put the ball in the box. Put the ball in the box when you get a chance. And to be fair, second half we came out, They had chances again. They scored another one. They made it 4, and you still. I always think to myself, it's still not a It's not. I would think if we'd have come away from there losing 4-2 and 4-3 on aggregate, it's not a disgrace, is it?
No,
when you
not
look
at
at it, you've lost against, as you said, the previous year they played in the final of European, and it's not a disgrace to lose against them. That, and then it's you're playing again, the ball come in the box, and Barry's just not really conventional in what he's done, is he?
Yeah, exactly.
If the ball's there, and he's just been able to just go across and it's just gone. And I always remember, I looked at Steve Wright and he looked at me and I'm like, bewilderment really, because it's like, do you do, how do you sort of explain, how do you explain this, and it's like, then again, it's another thing that you think about all your life, isn't it? Like how it was, and you've been there, and it's like sort of the achievement has been great, it was just amazing, really.
That's it.
Amazing feeling. We all looked at each other and thought, what did we do? We didn't know what to do to celebrate, or there's probably still 3 or 4 minutes to go, and it's and then you expect them to come back at you again, don't they? But we defended again, and it was just amazing, really. The feeling as well,
like you say, the feeling is very. I'm not exaggerating here. Very few footballers ever will have experienced an achievement like that. That is ludicrous to be. Let's be honest, a struggling 4th division team.
Yeah.
You go off to European royalty. Like I say, you do in both matches. It's astonishing, absolutely astounding achievement.
And it was they were classed as royalty, weren't they? They were, they were classed as a really top team. But it just goes to show that what can be achieved by hard work and determination and team spirit, really, isn't it? And say fairy tales or something like that, but from where you are and what you play on a Saturday against teams in your same from the same country and go play there in midweek against a team that's quite highly rated, and that it is just it's quite
I'm just thinking as well. It just hit me then as well. They were at least half the Portuguese national team, and the previous summer they'd been really good in the European Championships for Portugal. So it's all these players.
They're probably just tired, weren't they, from that?
I reckon
they're probably just tired.
I think they would have won it if they didn't know we were around the corner.
But no, it's just something that it's there, isn't it? You've done it, and it's just like it's one of them.
Yeah. And then the next round, goodness me, as if Porto aren't a big enough team. Roma, managed by Sven-Göran Eriksson, they've got Toninho Cerezo and Falcao from the amazing Brazil team of '82. Those two and Socrates are the beating heart of an amazing team. They've got Italian international strikers, Graziani and different people like that.
Ancelotti was playing.
Of course. The next season, pretty much the same team will lose the European Cup final on penalties to Liverpool.
At home,
beg your pardon. No, that was the previous season, wasn't it?
Was it?
Oh, was it? My brain's gone. Yeah, it was the previous season.
Was it?
Because it was '84, wasn't it? Yeah. So that's a hell of a team. You go to Rome.
Another holiday, wasn't it? Did you have good passport?
Weather's nicer.
Yeah. But then just go back to the Porto thing. We lost 4-3. So we lost 4-3 against Stockport on the Saturday before the game. We lost 4-3 against Porto. And we got back on the early hours of the Thursday morning. We travelled down to Torquay on the Friday. We got beat 4-3 on the Saturday against Torquay away down there. There's 12 goals in it. We did. I was played in 2 of them, so I'm glad. But going back to Rome, it was another one as well, wasn't it? Because it's you look at them, they're one of the best teams around as well, weren't they? Full of internationals. Like obviously Italian internationals, Brazilian internationals, Olympic Stadium. And it's just I keep using that word surreal, but it's just sort of you go from here to where you are and playing over there, and you just go and you've got to go and enjoy it, haven't you? Because it doesn't become a job then, does it? When you're doing that, you're just playing for the enjoyment, but you're playing in the enjoyment of a different level and against different players and against a different level of players in a different stadium, an Olympic stadium, which was amazing. I remember going to the game and we were travelling on the coach, and you've got like a little Italian on the motorbike, policeman on a little motorbike, like in front of you, getting the traffic to the side, and then you're coming down this wrong road, and it's to the Olympic Stadium. You've got all the statues of all the previous Olympians and that, you know, like, and it then becomes in your head, doesn't it? You know, it becomes, God, what am I going to face today? And that was it. We weren't really in any danger at the time. There was that game. We weren't really in any danger, you know. But I think the difference with the Italians, they know that they can play, don't know, and they can play when they want. They're happy to. We don't score, so we don't concede. They never ever concede, do they? So it was quite tight early on, and then they had a penalty, didn't they? Had a dubious, I'd say a dubious penalty. Steve Wright, every time I see Steve Wright now, it's never a penalty, Steve. I'm like, no, I agree with you, mate. I agree with you, mate.
Well, it's a handball.
It's a handball, yeah.
But it's a handball by Roma player.
Yeah.
And I guess
no VAR then, was it?
Yeah. I never thought I'd be dreaming of VAR.
Yeah.
You know, players going up and hands are up, and the ref can't tell. You know, because it's all short sleeves. Yeah. You can't tell who's handled it. He's giving it the wrong way.
So I think you give it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Obviously, penalty goes in. But then you never really caused any more problems that first half, really.
Yeah.
And then second half, obviously, they've scored again. It's a great strike from Cerezo to Hillsfield from quite a way out. And then we had a couple of chances. I've looked back on the games at times, and we had a couple of chances, you know, when we could have, you know, scored 1 or 2 or something as well, which would have made it really more interesting, wouldn't it?
Kevin Rogers, I believe, I found he had a sort of close range when he put over.
He put it over the bar, didn't he?
I know he was a wide attacking player, but maybe he wasn't the bloke he wanted the chance to. You know, we had other players who probably be better in front of goal.
Yeah, just you can't sort of say he was going to drop 2. So it was just one of them things, wasn't it? But yeah,
it's incredible. Again, it's another incredible performance, even in defeats, because like I said, the penalty shouldn't have been given. We've had chances before the second goal, and that second goal, there's 2 things I think to say about that. One is that's a world-class player hitting a world-class shot, and secondly, that the way offside rules were looked at then probably would have been disallowed, or should I say, should have been. I mean, according to the modern rules, no, but according to the rules as they were then, there is a player in offside position, and it's intended to just be if a player's there. So we're very unlucky to let any goals in there.
Absolutely, I would agree with you there, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
So we were robbed.
Robbed, yeah. Exactly, robbers.
Now, we did lose the home game, but I've watched it all through not long ago. And to me, it's really striking how even that game is in so many ways. We really caused them problems. Yeah. I mean, you can see their quality on occasion.
Yeah.
But they're not able to impose themselves on the game, and we give them real issues.
They did a lot of time wasting as well, didn't they? In that game, they did, which is what they were. As I say, that they never hardly conceded any goals because they always used, the defence was their first. You know, that was what they always used to work on, wasn't it? So they never concede any goals, and they take the sting out of the game as well at times, don't they? But no, you're right. We did cause them a few problems. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, we did definitely.
We don't score, but balls into their box. Yeah. They're not dealing with them well.
No.
And again, Jim Steele's there, so that's part of it. Yeah, that's part of it.
I think it's a physical presence as well. Yeah, they're not used to it all. They're not used to it. That's not their type. They don't play in their league that way, do they? So I think if you go in there for 1 or 2 games, it causes them a little bit of issues, doesn't it? And I think that's what we did.
It makes me think back, like I say, in those days. I think now the styles of leagues have come a lot closer together. Yeah. But then there was a real gulf in style, and that's why. Well, I mean, Jim Steele does go to play in the Spanish top league on loan for a bit. Yeah. But also, I mean, around that time, Mark Hateley is doing brilliantly at Milan. Yeah. And to be fair to Hateley, he was more than just a big target man. Yeah. But I think it was that made him a massive success in Italy, that he was unusual. And again, a big British bloke who knocked them around a bit.
It's just something they can cope with, and so probably something that they've not really come to terms with in the past. That it's something that's never happened before.
I think when I look back, I know this is a little bit later, but you look at even a young player then would be someone like Baresi. He was, what a wonderful defender he was. Yeah. But he was like 5'9", something like that. A beautiful reader ball, beautiful tackler. Yeah. But if he was up against 6'3" target men every week, he'd deal with them in some ways. Yeah. maybe crafty ways, but he wouldn't
Absolutely
be
crafty
consistently
ways, no,
handling them, would he?
no,
And that's
no.
why people like Heatley did well there.
It would be different, wouldn't it? They'd have to learn a different mentality
Yeah.
how to play against players like that, wouldn't they? And I think the Italians would evolve in that then, wouldn't they?
Yeah,
They'd start, they'd be more physical again.
Yeah.
And they are
And
quite
they
physical.
have done now, haven't they, really?
Yeah,
And you think of,
yeah.
see, when Cristiano Ronaldo's gone there,
Yeah.
and, some of those qualities you got to deal with, haven't you? But
it's true it's just true what you say. I think you've just at the moment. I think Jim did really well, and Jim was a presence, in the team, and he was just sort of he caused problems, and he would do it at that height anyway, wouldn't you? And it was he was the target man. He was the target, and it was hit Jim, and then get your runs going past him, or get it out wide for Jim to go back in the box and that.
And it's like you were saying earlier as well, that he did have the capacity to bring it down and use it with his feet as well, which in those days people would talk about, good feet for a big bloke.
Yeah.
Now you don't so much because a big player's got to be able to play as well. In those days you would have that sort of one-dimensional, but he had more than that. He could use the ball on the floor as well. And,
absolutely.
And I had other players around him who would cause issues, and a lot of hard workers, like I had a soft spot for Cunnington.
Yeah.
He was battling away, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was so fit. He was like a Frank Carradus, really. He was another runner. He ran and ran and ran. He was tremendous, But put himself about, and it's like you look at some of the tackles he would do then, and you look at some of the tackles now.
Yeah.
You just, that people get sent off for or booked for now.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think as well with the VAR at the moment, I think it's just that they slow it down so much as well. It looks a lot worse, doesn't it? I mean, if they play it at the right speed, then you don't really realise some of the contact that they make. And then when they slow it down, I think it shows that the contact, but it's also highlights, and that's when they're sort of, they're giving yellow cards for stuff. But just run it at the speed and that, really, and just do it that way.
Yeah, you see a lot of players getting sent off now for that sort of slightly mistimed but honest tackle.
But
where
if they're sliding
they
on,
basically clipped them or trod on them a little bit, and it's just slightly mistimed. It's full speed. Well,
and
the ref didn't give it.
if the ground's wet as well, you can't stop yourself, can you? So you're sort of challenging, and then you're following through, and you're getting sent off for the follow through as well. Sometimes it's like I'm supposed to top.
Yeah, exactly. But that was a good wholehearted team. People like Andy Edwards up front and Steve Buxton are never going to give you a rest anyway.
No, absolutely not. No, to be fair, I mean, and that's the way it should be, isn't it? That's how it is. I mean, you look at City now, and I mean, I'd hate to play against City because it doesn't matter what they do. Give it to anybody, give it to the keeper, whatever. You'll either chip it over your head into the next player, and it's just it would be a thankless task playing up front against them.
Oh, exactly.
Really, but. And then you push in and everybody squeezes in, and then they've got the ability then to just knock it and play a total different game.
Exactly. When I was thinking about those Wrexham players, a lot of them I got a real soft spot for. And then you throw in Jay King was a good fullback. Jack Kay was a really good centre back as well.
Yeah.
And yet we do struggle that season in the league, and that continues after we've gone out of Europe.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't help that you get injured again, don't you? And that's kind of ends your time with Wrexham, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I played the last game of the season because Bobby Roberts got sacked at the end towards the end.
George Showell was in, wasn't he?
George Showell was in for a little while, and then Dixie came in, didn't he, towards the end of that season. So I played in the very last game of the season. We played at Blackpool, we drew 0-0. And then that was it, basically, really. I was fit just to come back in on that game. I think, don't know whether it was just coincidence, but I played in that last game, and then we obviously come back in on the Monday, and he just sort of said, and I mean, I remember I had a conversation with Fred Tomlinson, who was a chairman at the time when we played either against Porto or Roma. I can't remember what it was, and he just sort of said to me, he said, "You carry on getting injured." He said, "We can't afford to keep you." Or and I understood that really, to be honest with you, because as you said, previously, the finances were really, really poor. They were paying me to paying me to play, and then bringing loans in as well. So I understood that anyway, to be honest with you. But it's just a shame, isn't it? Because when you come, you're only 21 at the time, and it's just like where'd you go, and what you do, It's football's been what you've ever known since you sort of played at 11 when you've been in the school team, and that you've played it for 10 years for me then. But I had like 4 years as a pro and 2 years as ground staff or apprentice as it was then. So for 6 years, it's all I'd ever known. It was my my first proper job, as you would say, really. You know, so anything from that is downwards, isn't it? Really, because you know, whoever you speak to, anybody young boy or whatever, or even young girls now, isn't it? Because obviously they want to be a professional footballer, you know, and everybody wanted to be a professional footballer. You know, I mean, I meet friends from school. I mean, I came to Wrexham when I was 16. I never went back really. I've always stayed around here. So friends from school, we've all started to meet up and that as well. And all they ever do is, when you were at Wrexham, what did you know what I mean, man? It's just it was just how it was, because they were so happy that I'd come to Wrexham and been a professional footballer. And I mean, a lot of them have had really good careers themselves as well. But no, that's what they talk about is, you know, professional football, and you did this and did that, and they like, when you talking now, it's like Roma and Porto, tell me about it, talk about it, and I'm like, yeah, okay, let's talk about it. I'd like to talk about it all the time. It's nice. It's nice at times when, you know, like now, and you know, and when it comes up all, you know, 40 years this year, isn't it? It's nice to talk about it then, but you know, it's just something I did. You know, I don't. It's one of them things, isn't it? I was lucky enough to be a pro at the end of the day, and to play games. You know, so that's I'm happy with that.
Well, that's good, but you gave a lot of pleasure to us, and those games. I mean, goodness me, I'll never forget them.
I just wish I, you know, give more, to be honest. But you know, that's one of them things, isn't it? Yeah, it's one of them things, isn't it?
Oh yeah, played a part in what we both agree is one of the biggest upsets in the history of football. I reckon that's a reasonable one. That.
Yeah.
Struggle to think of any ones that are a bigger surprise than that.
Yeah, over two legs, I would say. Yeah, from where we were in the fourth division to where they were in their elite leagues, and I would say so. Yeah, totally.
Oh, absolutely. Just one final thing, just to bring it back to the present, because we were talking beforehand before we started recording this, and you were saying about, you know, current goalkeepers and things like that. Just from your goalkeeper's perspective. Because I'm a strong believer in ex-outfield players don't understand goalkeepers at all. This is partly because I was a failed goalkeeper. Although it was pretty easy to understand me. If you put a cross in on me, it was going to be a goal. But, you know, just looking, we've got such remarkable strength and depth. And, you know, going back, you know, people like Rob Laington, who are no longer with us, but then going through Mark Howard, Okonkwo, I mean, McNicholas, who's loaned out to Rochdale, I really rate him. I think he's terrific. And then Burton, who's come in, looks really good.
Yeah.
It must be great to see, you know, so many good practitioners of goalkeeping coming to the club. It's fun to watch.
I'd like to see more of them if we could get a ticket to the game.
Yes, we'll see what we can do.
But yeah, I mean, Mark Howard has come in. I remember seeing Mark when he was I think he was at Sheffield United. He's been at Sheffield United. And, you know, when you see him on the telly a few years ago, and you always used to look at him and think, yeah, he's really calm. And he was quite calm and everything that he did, you know. And then when he came to Wrexham, I think he's done really. I think he's done really, really well. And he looks as though he's one of those guys who is always looking to help. You know, like when I say about Di, always you would help me or something. And I would imagine if he was in training, he would, as the elder keeper, he would always be sort of helping and sort of, you know, like trying to help the young lads and that as well. But I mean, obviously Arthur's come in as well, hasn't he? He's had a tremendous, you know, since he's come in, and the success has been there since he's come in as well. You know, he's been steady. He hardly ever misses a game, and then you've got your backup as well, haven't you? As you know, so I think goalkeeping's looking really good there at the moment, isn't it? But it's different now. I mean, I don't know whether I'd be able to cope with the way that they are when they play with the feet and that. You know, they play a lot with the feet now, don't they? You know, and it's in play and it comes back to you, and then I mean, it's just like somebody closing you down at 100 miles an hour, and you'll be like, oh my god, here we go. But they manage it and they do it, you know, and they do really, really well. And he seems as though he's got the confidence of the three the three central defenders in front of him as well, which helps hell of a lot as well, you know. And at the moment, there's not much change in front of him either.
Exactly.
You know, it's all consistent. You know, they're all got the same. They're there. You know, if injuries and that. But I think Phil Parkinson, to be fair, got a settled squad, hasn't he? And a settled team. You know, and I think Liverpool years ago, didn't they? I think they won the league with about 3 or 4 changes all through the season, you know. And
I think they used 14 players one season,
something like that. And I think, to me, I think you've always got to play your best team. Really, I know that they play a lot of games and everything now, but I think you should always play your best team, and you know you know each other. You know your consistency's there. You know, and give him a rest every now and again. Yeah. But I think he's lucky as well. Not to say lucky because he's done tremendously well. The players that he signed, which we spoke about before, you've got 2 players for every position, and they're all at the same. I'll say all at the same standard, but you know they're all never ever going to let the team down. If you whoever you bring in, it's not a bad player that you're bringing in. You know you're always bringing in somebody who's really really at the same level as what the other person that they've dropped out, or they're just learning, or they're going to learn, or they've got potential to be good players, and that, you know, which is really exciting. I mean, I've got family here in Wrexham who are fans and season tickets. And I'd say they're so excited with everything. They go away and all the time and that, you know, and they love it, you know, and it's just, you know, you're walking down the streets and they've all got Wrexham shirts on. I was, you know, when I was playing, they were Man United and Liverpool and all that, but, you know, it's great to see, you know, it is really, really great to see.
Absolutely. I think Clarkson knows what he's doing, doesn't he? Fair play to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he does, I mean, you know, I said before, social media at times can be cruel. We all think that we know the right things and that we're all football managers, aren't we, at times? But I don't think he's made many mistakes, if I'm perfectly honest with you. You know, signings and everything, he seems to have got it pretty spot on, really. I'm really hopeful that they're progressing. This season, I wouldn't be surprised if they go up again this season, I'll be honest with you. You know, I'll be there and thereabouts because it seems as though the spirit's good in the camp.
100%.
They've got the fans, got the support. The owners are supportive, aren't they? You know, and I think if they come to January and if Phil Parkinson said to them, I need to buy a player, they'll back him.
Exactly.
100%. I think they will.
Good stuff. Well, can I just thank you, Stuart? That was an absolute pleasure to hear you talking about that. Really took me back to some great days. Goodness me.
I'm going to get the ball out and go in the back garden.
Yeah, too right. Come on, let's do it.
Give a bit of a play in the back garden.
Let's play good goalie, bad goalie.
Oh, God,
I know what role I'm taking.
Stuart Parker, good bloke. And a good goalkeeper for Wrexham, of course. Other business, of course. Well, the women's team had a fantastic win on Sunday, 3-0 against Cardiff Met. Got things really properly going. It was very good to see, especially leading up to the Britain Ferry game at home again next Sunday. A team that, well, we put in our one really poor performance of the season against, so we want to get back at them. The thing is, it was very similar to the FA Youth Cup, which Neil and I were commentating on. And that Wrexham dominant didn't take chances. The Youth Cup, we won in added time at the end of extra time. And so, well, it's a concern for the women's team all season. Just dominating and not taking chances. In a way, that's the most frustrating thing to watch, isn't it? You know, in some ways, it's almost easier to watch your team just not playing well and getting the beating they deserve. But when you're playing well, not taking chances, and you're vulnerable, that can really drive a football fan mad, can't it?
Definitely going on last night's game in the FA Youth Cup. I mean, Wrexham was so dominant and they missed so many chances. We thought that's what's going to happen. Morecambe could have nicked a goal, and that would have been the end of. But luckily, we scored that late goal. But what a fantastic game to watch. But yeah, going back to the women's team, as you've said, Mark, you've watched all the games. I unfortunately only saw a couple of the televised games. But yeah, when you're dominant in games, you need to, make that pressure stick and put a couple of goals in, which, as I said to you, last night, Wrexham, the youth team, did struggle to do that last night, but very important. And yeah, it must be hard on the players, and it must be, it must play on them mentally that they keep having all these chances and not betting them in the back of the net. So yeah, very important that this Sunday that when they play Britain Ferry again, that they put the record straight and get a good win against them.
and certainly Britain Ferry a step up from Cardiff Met and the sort of side you need to take your chances against. The Cardiff Met game could easily been 7 or 8 on balance of play and chances missed. And to be fair, their goalkeeper, Courtney Smith, was brilliant, but we should have scored a hatful against them. You remember Most Haunted, the show with the ghosts and all that malarkey, and what's his name? Derek Acora, the spiritualist, who would go around going, Sam, because that was his spirit animal or something that would guide him to ghosts. Well, yeah, Bill, are you filming an episode in your house? I just heard a scary sort of whispery, ghostly sort of thing, like they used to play in the background.
It's
you came on the screen looking terrified.
No, no, my dog regularly attacks the cat, so I think I couldn't quite hear it because I've got these on, but I'm assuming that's what it was. I think the dog thinks he's playing, and the cat definitely doesn't think he's playing, and it escalates a little bit sometimes.
Right, fair enough.
Didn't Derek Acora play for us?
No, he said he did.
Right, yeah. So a lot like the TV programs, it was fabricated then.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. He I think he said it in his autobiography as well. So he claimed that he played for Wrexham. It's absolutely untrue. There's no record of it whatsoever. It's a bit like, I got to be honest. When I was teaching, loads of kids would come up to me and say, "Oh, sir, you spot Wrexham, don't you?" Yeah, that's right. And they say, "Oh, my granddad played for Wrexham, or my dad played for Wrexham." And I say, "All right, what's his name?" And they'd say the name of somebody, and I think, your granddad or dad is trying to show off in front of you, but they didn't. I don't say that to them. Obviously, it's not my issue. But I would after hearing that, and I had heard it quite a lot, go home and just check through the records, and yeah, nobody with that name played for our reserves or youth team or anybody. So yeah, I think it's quite a common male thing to try and exaggerate your sort of football bona fides, I think. But
yeah.
And I remember saying that in the Brazil dressing room. Is that right? Said Ronaldo. I believe that's well, when we were teammates. I said, Senor. Even though he's not Spanish. I still see Senor, isn't it? Yeah. Any players that caught your eye, Neil, in that youth game? I thought there were a few good performances.
We struggled last night to pick a man of the match because they were all very good players. But Owen up front was excellent. The two strikers were very, very good, and the wing backs were excellent as well.
Yeah.
It was very, very difficult to pick out a star man in the game. But what a fantastic game to watch at youth level. The quality of the football was superb.
It was a good game, wasn't it? Really, really good game.
I did manage to catch any of it. How do we set up? Do they play like a Phil Parkinson style of football?
Well, not in terms of formation. They play 4-2-3-1. They're quite lots of early second haul balls from the full back, looking for the wide strikers, because the wide strikers were trying to get into supportive positions all the time for the forwards. They had the captain Moore playing off the striker that Neil mentioned, Owen, but they'd interchange quite a bit. So Owen would drop off deep and then Moore would run into that gap. Quite a high line. And yeah, they looked solid. They could pass when they needed to. They could go long when they needed to, especially when they brought on a really interesting sub, Umar Nawaz, who is massive. He was bullying the centre-backs, but he had a decent touch as well, especially I felt, when he was like playing the final ball, the point in the game where you want to have a decent weight of bars. He was feeding nice passes in. He's come from Wolves and scored a lot of goals for them.
Oh, it's that lad, is it?
Yeah. And he's massive. And as the number of first-year pros who started the game and the number of first-year pros who are on the pitch by the end is really promising as well, because they're not the oldest players that you could pick. We didn't have the professionals, the likes of Ashfield and Dean, Rainbird, Aaron James, people like that. They can play in the youth league because you're allowed 3 players who are on professional contracts, but they weren't allowed to play in the youth cup. So,
right.
So it was, again, quite a young team, but they handled themselves very well, Neil, in what was a physically demanding game because both sides were really pressing ferociously throughout with that.
yeah, after the first 10 minutes, Wrexham was totally dominant, as we talked about last night. And the balls down the wings were superb that the strikers went onto, and they created so many chances in that first 10 minutes. Even the young lads at the end, when we were leaving, Marky, the winning goal, the goal scorer, was saying, they should have been 3 or 4-0 up within 10 minutes. And I totally agree with him. Just poor finishing, and unfortunately, we saw it a lot last night, didn't we? Where players were actually slipping at the most critical time.
Yeah, so it certainly was an entertaining game and some interesting young players to keep an eye on. And then this weekend, double header simultaneously. Harrogate away in the cup while the women's team are playing that game against Britain Ferry that Neil mentioned. So, any thoughts on Harrogate?
Could call it Harroween, couldn't we? A bit like the Barroween that we had back in the day. Hopefully it's not a spooky result, though. I'll stop now.
If only you'd stopped earlier.
I know, yeah. This is one of those games that kind of like, if we're going to get dumped out of the FA Cup, you don't want it to be in this sort of game, but it's also, Neil, potential banana skin, isn't it? If the team's a second string one.
It is a potential banana skin, and that's what worries me a little bit, depending on what line, what players he puts out on there in the pitch. I mean, last season, prime example, we were 2-0 up and ended up a 2-2 draw with hanging on for the draw. I mean, on paper, we should win it easily, but Harrogate have put a run of results together recently. So yeah, it's no given. It'll be their big cup final for them, and the fans will turn out and be well supported. Like wherever Wrexham go at the moment, they're sellout crowd. So yeah, they'll definitely be up for this game. Harrogate will be, and Wrexham are going to have to be on top of their game.
You suspect he'll rotate at least a little bit, but we do have terrific, strength and depth, and he made 11 changes that Wolves game, and we looked really impressive. I'd accept it was against an 21 team, but yeah, let's hope that we should have the quality and depth to put a good team out, I would argue.
Especially with two potential debuts as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and also the likes of Lewis Brunt, who's certainly a player, who deserves a bit more pitch time. What do you think of the two new guys, by the way?
I wish I could pronounce the Icelandic guy's surname.
Well,
I've never tried, but go on, Mark, dazzle us with your multilingual skills.
I'm going to dazzle you with the fact that I asked our good friend, the Icelandic fan club, to give me a pronunciation, and fair play, he was right back at us. So let's see if I can get this right. It's that ghost again. I told you, Neil.
Yeah,
it's frightening. This time it said burn it all.
He's not happy.
Oh.
Something's definitely spooked him. Oh, it's fireworks outside, is it? Oh, well, that'll be why then. Oh.
Fireworks should be banned.
They should.
Yeah. Jorn Daði Budvarsson.
Say it again, Mark. Sorry.
Jorn? Yeah.
That was easy.
Daði Budvarsson. Daði.
Okay.
The D-looking letter that occurs in the second and third words of his name looks like a D, but it's a sort of soft sound.
Bit like the Welsh double D.
Yes. Yeah. But quite soft sounding by the way he said it. So Budvarsson. So I mean, he's got a great pedigree, of course. Played every game in the Euros when Iceland did so well, including knocking England out, of course. And Matty James, last 3 seasons, he started at least 30 league games in the Championship. And certainly talking to Andy Morrell on Saturday, and he'd been asking a few people in the game, they were all saying that's a hell of a player to tempt down to League One. So just like Stephen Fletcher, you deal in free agents, but we're in a position now to deal at a very high level.
With all due respect, it's not Goldar Matteo and Chris Sang, is it, that we're pulling from the free agent list? No, 2 players who came in and did a job, but we're shopping in a different market now, aren't we?
We are. It's astonishing, isn't it?
It just makes me wonder why they're still free agents. That would be my only concern.
Yeah, I I mean, could it be? And I don't know. I've got no inside line in this. Is it that they were holding out for a championship team or holding out for a very good offer rather than just dropping down to League Two?
Well, Bodvarsson was at Bolton last year, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of their fans' comments that I saw online were along the lines of didn't suit their style of play, but was actually one of their better players. So could come into our system and do a job, definitely. So that's promising. But yeah, you're dropping out of a club like Bolton or from the Championship. Your wage demands aren't going to be slim. So whether you drop down as far as the lower end of League One or League Two, but a lot of players can sort of price themselves out of a move, can't they? Sometimes,
Yeah. Which may well be the case with these two, mightn't it? So they're certainly interesting. They're players to conjure with, aren't they? It's exciting.
yeah.
I had something clever to say then. Oh, yeah, I know what it was. Looking at Brotherson's record as well, you might look at it, and people have been reporting. When you read the actual sort of news stories about him signing, and he doesn't look like he scored that many goals for a striker. But actually, usually people just refer to league games and goals. He scores a hell of a lot in cup competitions. I don't know why.
Get him on Saturday. Get him on Saturday.
Yeah. Ludicrous record in all cup competitions. So maybe he just loves the excitement of the big game, eh? But we'll have plenty of those for him.
Yeah. So do you think it maybe start with Molly? Maybe he's a tall striker as well, isn't he? So
I'm intrigued. I don't know what exactly we're looking at with him, if I'm honest with you. I guess Saturday will when we get our first proper idea of it. But Sunday, probably, more than Saturday, let's be honest. James, again, seems to be occupying the sort of roles that Dobson occupies. But then we thought Rathbone would be playing deeper than he was at the first one. We were playing him off the striker. So who knows? Who knows? Parky knows. That's what matters.
Yeah, he's got a real dilemma on his hands, doesn't he? Who he switches around, because there's certain players in that team you wouldn't switch out at all.
Yeah,
like to Dobson, you couldn't move, and Barnett. There's a few players on there that you wouldn't want to take out because they're playing so well, and and I like the backbone for the team at the moment.
100%. Yeah, it's nice to have that sort of dilemma. And by the way, remember Dilemma? What a goalkeeper he was for Wales. Yeah. I think we should wrap this up now because I do think that Cerberus, the Hound of Hell, is losing his house.
Yeah.
And I feel he should take evasive action.
I may need to go and
yeah,
shout at some naughty fireworks, I think.
It's ever since you took that Wrexham lager hat off that the evil spirits seem to have been circulating. I don't know if they want to bear that in mind in future.
Sorry, jumping in there, guys. That was another thing today that they've brought into Wrexham lager. You may have touched that on already as well.
Yeah, if you turn up on time, Neil, you find out whether we're talking about it or not. We have, I'm afraid, Neil. I'm so sorry.
Touché. Yeah.
Right, guys, it's been a pleasure as always. Now, Bill, go and sort out that errant hellhound, and Neil,
I will
go and sort out that errant hell pig.
No, I've got my dog wants to go out to the loo as well, so I need to let him out. So and then go and play cards.
And Emma's going to open the back door a crack so that I can go too. It's been a pleasure as always, guys. See you next week,
guys.
See you guys.
Bye. That, by the way, was Final Whistle Weekly.